We're back. Season 5, Episode 8, The Lost Treasure of Griffinstone. This is the episode in which... This is our first map episode, real map episode, where Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie are both sent to Griffinstone, which is the Griffin City, if you could call it that. And they have to try and fix a friendship problem, which they do, thanks to finding the lost idol of Actually, no, it has nothing to do with it. Instead, they end up finding several other things, and in so doing, trying to help people in order to be better people. We will see consequences of this in the future, because of course we freaking will. Now, this episode sucked. I'm kidding. I like this episode. Sorry. I have a lot more to talk about in this one at least, so that's nice. First thing I thought is, so Pinkie's at the beginning. Can you imagine having an entire day just to do something that you want to? No, me neither. So she's just going to bake for an entire day. Actually, first thought I had was that she was baking the cake from the mystery episode, the train episode. You remember that one? But no, I went back and rewound and listened again, and it's just some random cake thing. Similar, not the same. Yeah, that's Ponyville in a nutshell right there. I don't have anything to do today. Anyways. So, yeah. No, instead the map calls. This is, again, the first time we've really seen the map call someone, so it's good to establish that, you know, this is the map, I have to go deal with this right now. Don't worry, I'll leave an alligator in charge of baking, because that's the smartest thing I can do. I like you, Pinkie, but sometimes I do wonder about you. So, naturally, Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash are the two who are going to go to the Griffin place. That makes perfect sense, not only because they are custom-tailored for the difficulty they have to go overcome, but also because of the fact that they're the two, arguably the only two ponies with any substantial history with griffins. Because the Gilda episode, God, that was in Season 1, wasn't it? Was all about Pinkie Pie and Rainbow Dash, and the two of them interacting with Gilda. So, okay. This leads to the map itself, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But we then find out about the history of the Griffins. Can I just say that I actually jazz about this? I want to share something real quick while we're talking about this. I went and found the official map. It's actually been updated a couple times. To my knowledge, this is the current officially updated map of the area. You'll probably notice a few things in specific, but if you cast your eyes into basically the east part, across that large gap river thing, it's supposed to be another continent, whatever, you'll actually see Griffinstone. And you can see the path they would have had to take past Rainbow Falls and all the way up. It's a heck of a trip, as you can see. That is way out there, unless they want to go straight across the river, which, honestly, I'm a little bit surprised, or excuse me, sea, which I'm a little surprised they didn't, but whatever. By the way, it's a great map. It's got a lot of cool info on it. But anyways, this is obviously very shrunk down. It's a large map. But I just point this out because one of the things this episode does is some excellent world building. We have greedy griffins who are hoarding bits and treasure, which lines up with how griffins are usually shown mythologically as being guardians of treasure. But then a king, well, let's rewind that, but then a person finds a mythical artifact and uses it as a symbol of griffin strength and maturity. They then reassemble the roving bands of griffins into a unified force. Now, if this doesn't sound familiar, a lot of real-life groups have done exactly this path in history. It can be argued that every roaming group that actually survived went through this path, but I'm thinking more along the lines of some of the more marauding groups, where groups of bandits or marauders or raiders would raid and rob and banditry and all that fun stuff, and then over time would settle down into an actual, organized, cohesive force, and eventually turn into, go from a bandit kingdom into a real kingdom. This is the kind of thing that happens semi-frequently, and that's very clearly what happens here. I just find it interesting that this king had to use this symbol. Vikingers are a great example of this. He had to use this symbol, this artifact, in order to use it as an anchor point to ensure that everyone would have something to unify around. If you're not understanding why I find this so amusing, a lot of real-life nations have done the... nations is the wrong word, because nations is a recent concept. A lot of real-life let's just go with organizations, have done this over many, many years by using something to be used as like a symbol of what we represent. Sometimes it's a flag. Actually, it's usually a flag. Sometimes it's a specific magical thing. Sometimes it's a religious thing, etc., etc. Sometimes it's this really cool pin that I have in my coat. You get my point. So he was just using, he was effectively using the Idol of Boreas, haha, by the way, as a flag. Naturally, when the flag is stolen, well, you can see why things would fall apart from there. And what we end up having is stagnation and a degree of emigration, effectively. Not immigration, excuse me, emigration. In other words, well, actually, I'll get to that in a minute, but that's something that's going to come up later. This also leads to Twilight. Poor Twilight. No, I don't want to go. It's just, it'd be really cool to see the artifact and the books and this ancient kingdom, which we barely know anything about. But no, it's okay. If the map wanted me to go, it would want me to go. Sad face. This is actually a subplot, believe it or not. It is one of the subplots that will be going throughout Season 5. It's a very small subplot, but it is there. And that subplot is Twilight is left at home. Believe it or not, that is going to come up. That is going to be relevant in future episodes. So that's one of our small season arcs for Season 5. Poor Twilight. Either way, she's obviously very upset about this. But, of course, this makes perfect sense for the map. I've already gushed about the map when the map was first introduced, so allow me to try and truncate my gushing briefly by saying the map is freaking amazing. This is the perfect, just the perfect GM tool. I almost want to introduce something like this into one of my own campaigns, just because it is such a perfect tool. Here's how it works. It generates, there's the quest. It knows what the quest is, and therefore knows what kind of people would be good at that quest, and therefore knows who to send, and why. You can only do this with what is effectively GM knowledge. You know, the person running the game, and in this case, the writers who are running the show. They know the situation, and they can customize the situation to specifically work for specific people, and, this is important, not work for other people. If Rarity had shown up, all she would have done is fixed up how everything looks, which wouldn't have actually assisted people. If Twilight had shown up, she would have retrieved the idol effortlessly, thanks to magic and the fact that she can teleport, which wouldn't have solved anything. It had to send Pinkie Pie, baking, and Rainbow Dash, friendship. Those two pieces were required for this puzzle, and that is the brilliance of the map and its usage as a quest hook. I know this is, you know, narrative instead of video gamey, but the same thing applies in both cases. I love this. It's great. Anyways. That's also true, Lord Harriman. I have actually done things like this before, but I will freely admit that I tend to either guesstimate and also presume in some cases. If you've ever written a backstory for a character on the fly, that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, filling in the gaps kind of a thing. So yeah, you're right, it's not quite the same thing. But it's ruddy brilliant, I love it. Anyways. So Pinkie Pie goes off and spends tons and tons and tons and tons of money, because Harry Potter, which leads to Twilight having a guidebook narration which goes over the sequence, which is good for 3 reasons. Number 1, it keeps Twilight's actress, you know, involved. Number 2, it gives us something to listen to while the travel montage is happening. And number 3, it drops 2 little interesting tidbits which help to serve as foreshadowing. Not only the library, but most importantly of all, the scones. So then we have our first... So we see a couple of griffins. The first griffin they actually interact with gets the point across beautifully. Excuse me. Leafeon, come here. So, there's my little Leafeon. She's amazing. She's awesome. You're wonderful. Pretend that this is Pinkie Pie, and I am a griffin. Now, this is a brilliant thing. It only lasts like a second and a half, but this is absolutely brilliant. Because what happens is Pinkie Pie shows up, the griffin grabs Pinkie Pie, moves her aside without saying anything, and then goes right back to walking. Very efficiently and very expertly, we now know just how bad the griffins are. That is a level of snobbery that most snobs only aspire to. You notice the griffin doesn't even talk. Now, obviously, that's probably more for voice acting reasons than anything else, but the fact is, that's not even an acknowledgement. You are not worth my time in any manner other than removing you from my position. Think about that. Brilliantly done. Still not as bad as Blue Blood. We don't talk about blue blood. It's okay, he's dead. He's burgers now. Anyways, so... Wow, very, very, very well done. This, of course, then leads to Gilda, Dash, Pinky, which was good. Florian? I can see Florian. Do you want to be Florian? Do you want to be Leafeon? Do you care what I call you? Okay. Anyways, so this then leads to Gilda mentioning the Pony Hero Complex. This is something that I think has been mentioned before, and I know will be mentioned later. It's the idea that the ponies can and have reached out to try and help other species regularly. Like, that's just a kind of a regular thing, and it's sort of developed into a pony, I guess stereotype is the word I'm looking for? That other races tend to think of ponies as, you know, you're here to help. You're here to fix things. Here to try and assist. Okay, whatever. Which is funny and horrible. It's funny because in universe it's awesome and makes perfect sense. It's horrible because of real life implications, which I'm not even going to touch because that was yesterday. But I'm willing to just sort of eject those real life connotations because I don't think they apply in this case. I think this is a fully in-universe situation. The ponies really do just want to help people. And they really do just want to get along with people, despite and indeed including their differences. This episode is a good example of that, and is not the only one. Moving on. So Rainbow... Naturally, what's funny about this, and this again goes to that map, the brilliance of the map. Rainbow Dash shows up and I'm sorry, I actually skipped over a step. We hear the rest of the story about what happened. Someone stole Griffinstone's flag, took it away, and that's what led to the dissolution of the nation. Real quick, by the way, it was an Aramospi? Aramospi, I think is how that's pronounced. I actually don't remember, please forgive me. The Cyclops creature. I looked it up. Aramospi are real creatures that actually really do have fantastical elements, not only to the Boreas, but Griffins. Go figure. Nice little touch. Oh, yeah, all the Griffins' names start with G. There's a lot of little touches like that. It's good stuff, good stuff. Good world building here. Plus for world building. But we find out why the kingdom collapsed. And that actually makes perfect sense to me. I know this sounds strange and odd, but even in real life, if a nation loses its flag, metaphorically, that tends to lead to the dissolution of the sense of identity. This is going to sound like the strangest example I've ever used. I also don't know if this is true. This is speculation based on bits and pieces of my own historical research. But this is the kind of concept about the Greeks. Now, you probably don't actually know what I'm talking about, so let me clarify a little bit. The Greeks weren't the Greeks. Way back in the day, the Peloponnesian Wars, there weren't the Greek people. There were the people living in the area kind of called the Greek city-states, but there was no Greek identity. One of the biggest reasons why certain things happened decades after the Peloponnesian Wars was because of the fact that certain people wanted to craft a Greek identity. They wanted to make that where there wasn't one. And so they crafted a flag, like the story of the 300, for example, which is a story that's retained even to modern standards. I mean... Now, this is of course debatable, but you get my point. In that case, the flag was stories. The flag was, you know, the concepts, the ideas, you know. And I bring that up because it reminds me a lot of the Griffins. Like, imagine for a moment if, and now I can't think of the reverse angle. It's something where the flag has been taken away. I'd have to really think about that for a second. Let me actually think about that. Give me a moment. I mean, the Prussians kind of count, if you want to think of it that way. I mean, when was the last time... I mean, I shouldn't actually say that so thoroughly. I don't know if the Prussians count. Because I don't live in Germany. There's actually... I mean, the Germanic states could probably qualify for this for some extent or another. Because before Germany was actually founded, there were a lot of Germanic states. And whether or not they consider themselves Germanic or the previous flag is something that kind of bounced around for centuries. I don't know. I'm getting off topic and I want to talk about history. Nobody wants to hear me talk about history, especially since I haven't actually studied it. Well, do people identify as Prussians, I guess was the question, Slim Jim. Wales might qualify. There's also Northern Ireland, although I shouldn't step my foot into that wasp nest, but from what I am told, most Northern Irelanders consider themselves, you know, British, more than they consider themselves Irish, but that's kind of unrelated too. It is also possible the idol was literally magical. In fact, that wouldn't even begin to surprise me. It still applies in the way I'm saying, but it also applies... Basically, the magic would boost what I am saying. Imagine if you could have a literally enchanted flag. So you have a flag, and the concept of identity, but you also now have a magically boosted flag, which goes psh, right? So anyways, you get the point. But yeah, in my opinion, the fall down and the breaking apart of Griffinstone makes perfect sense. That's all I'm trying to say. They didn't have a sense of national identity or cultural identity or whatever. So all they had left was their fondness of shiny things and bits and gold. And so they just kind of kept doing that without any purpose. You'll also notice, and I hate to point this out, but we have encountered 2 griffins before now. 2 named griffins, 5 griffins total. And we will encounter griffins in the future who all desperately want to leave Griffinstone. Gilda herself in this episode flat out says, yeah, Gustav was one of the guys, I actually wrote his name down. Gilda herself flat out says, oh my god, I just want to get enough bits to get the crap out of Dodge. I just want to earn enough bits and get out of here. If you'll remember, back in the episode, Gustav actually mentioned that his goal was to set himself up so he would make enough money, which now, we know, means he could have gotten out of Griffinstone. It's a recurring element. And that lines up, because nobody wants to stay in this run-down, terrible old place, but it's all they've got. So, Imperial Star Destroyer asked the relevant question. What does this mean for the Griffins in the pattern? Remember, the pattern is more a mathematical thing, rather than a literal magical thing. And I keep pointing that out, because people keep misquoting me on it. But I bring up that point, because in my opinion, you're absolutely right. The Griffins are lockstep out of the pattern, even though they totally should be. Based on future episodes, and yeah, Gabby is a great example of this, but frankly, Gilda herself is a good example of this. It's not like they don't fit in the pattern. It's just that they don't. I'm saying this wrong. It's not like they can't fit in the pattern, it's just that they don't. There we go, that's a better way to phrase that. They just haven't really had something to make that happen. And I do like the simple pragmatism of how they actually solve the issue in this episode. One Griffin making one friend with one tangible reason for said friendship. And that's important, and I do like that. Friendship's nice and all. Intangibles are great. But having a tangible side to it, too, adds more weight to it. I mean, there's a reason that you guys make runs happen with actual money, rather than just you saying, it'd be nice if. Right? That's probably a weird analogy, but my point is, people are going to respond more to, and there's more weight behind something that has weight behind it. A physical, tangible, real thing, like Shenizaga's sub right now. Good fortune, Shenizaga. I do hope that the transition goes well with the job. I do hope everything works out well there. Yeah, exactly, Loner. Now, Subnautica Below Zero is still funded. It's still happening. It's not happening anytime soon because the game isn't out yet. So if you want to put that towards something else, you are, of course, more than welcome to. It is also worth noting, and Pinkie Pie points this out, that her recipe wasn't wrong, it was just missing an ingredient. And as anyone will tell you, if you are missing an ingredient in a recipe, that can, and usually does, drastically change the result. Especially when it comes to baking. Speaking as someone who cooks almost all of his food, baking is just, that's voodoo science over there. God. So yeah, not having baking soda or baking powder, yeah, no, that would rather substantially change the results. Holy crap. I do like the audio cues when Gilda talks. It's the Rainbow Dash thing, it's just the same kind of concept. So then Pinkie, this is when Pinkie's relevance to this and why, so okay, I started talking about this and I got off topic because we started talking about national identity. You know, I don't know why I didn't use that. There's several states in the United States where that applies. Where because of the fact that we lost our flags as either being British or being to territories or being of the states, we kind of shifted towards being Americans. Most people that I know who live in the States do identify as Americans because we all have the American flags, both the literal flag and the metaphoric flags, to identify. I don't know why I didn't use that example. It's a great example of what I'm talking about. Anyways, sorry. Oh no, you're absolutely right. Sharing food is a huge thing. There's one of the many reasons I use food in so much of my discussion and communication is because food is such a universal constant, and the sharing of food has so many connotations attached to it. You know, simply it good and bad, but mostly good. You know, the sitting down, breaking bread, for God's sakes, right? Or sharing a meal with someone. There's actually cultures in real life where if you have sat into the same roof and shared a meal with someone, that's actually like a legally binding agreement that you have now signed by virtue of doing that, for God's sakes, right? So, this is why Pinky and Rainbow are such perfect picks for this one. You got it, by the way, Shinizaga. Thank you again. Is because Rainbow is going to show up saying, I'm going to fix everything. And she can't, because she is uniquely suited to not doing so. This is once again why I bring up the GM thing. The GM, absolutely, Avanux. Yeah, exactly, Sean. Neelix, they could have done so much with Neelix. A good cook in unknown territory. Think about that for a second. I'm off topic. Rainbow Dash wants to heroics it up. Okay, that makes sense. The GM has specifically crafted a scenario where heroics aren't going to work. Now, at first I was kind of questionable about the fact that she can't fly in there because, you know, I mean, she's a very good flyer, a very strong flyer. But then I started thinking about it. Have you ever experienced canyon winds? Because I actually have in real life. Canyon winds are real. Like, I can actually completely believe that canyon winds would be the kind of thing that she would have trouble flying in. You'll notice even Gilda, who is a stronger flyer, still has trouble flying down there and has to use her claws to actually reach her. So, yeah, no, that lines up. That's legit. And yeah, this is why Twilight shouldn't be here. So Rainbow tries to heroic it up, and as a consequence, the only thing she manages to do is get herself in danger, but that's okay. Because that's the goal. That's why she's here. She is here so that when things are real, her friend can help her. When she is actually in danger, Gilda wants to go and help her. That's literally her job here. I'm not making fun. That's brilliant. Pinky is here because Pinky knows how to bake. Although you'll notice they kind of run through the gamut. What's Pinky good at? Singing? Nope, no singing allowed. By the way, really nice touch. Do you remember how the Griffins were uneasy about rhyming? Do you remember that? That was in the book. The Friendship Journal that Luna and Celestia wrote. Amy Keating Rogers wrote that book. This episode was written by Amy Keating Rogers. So Pinky, yeah, Pinky doesn't ask for payment. She just helps them bake. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. First, she tries to sing. Singing's not allowed. So, okay, let's do parties. Well, you can't really do a party without any kind of supplies. She does need her resources. So can't do that. Oh, I know, Lord Aramont. Also true, S.A. Ross. So the third thing is, well, baking. This is, by the way, this is the second time this season she's had to eat a terrible muffin. Poor Pinkie Pie. I really love the back and forth. It's missing one important ingredient. Let me guess. Friendship? No. Baking powder. Love that. Anyways. But only Pinkie Pie, A, knows enough about baking. B, always has baking powder on her. C, is capable of eating the bad muffin. D, is capable of diagnosing the problem with the bad muffin because she ate it, which, so that's attached to C. And E, is willing to, without any kind of charge or effort, go ahead and help her assist this because she's good at what she's doing. I suppose E is unnecessary, but that's still 4 reasons why Pinkie Pie is perfectly suited to help with the baking situation. And now we have good food. And have you ever smelled baked goods? I'm sure you have. I love the smell of baked goods, personally. Almost in general. Like, just baking in general smells wonderful. Now imagine for a moment that you've kind of never smelled that before. Maybe literally never. At the very least, it's been a really long time. You notice how the nameless, voiceless, I actually don't remember her name, Greta, the one other griffin just stops in the middle of air because of the scent? Like, think about that. Think about what that would mean to smell that for the first time, effectively. Or literally. So, this, of course, goes back to the GM setup. Can't fly, sharp winds, canyon winds, stuck down there, injured. Pinky rushes over to help. Pinky also does something that most people would probably think is just a Pinky thing, but actually it's the kind of thing I do too in real life, semi-frequently. Every now and again, someone asks me to do something, and one of two things are true. Either I don't understand their request, so I assume that they know what they're talking about and I do what they're asking, which is not what they're asking. Or I know more than they do about the situation, but I presume that they know what they're talking about, and they know better than I do, so I do what they ask, and it doesn't help. That actually happens semi-often to me, even just in regular everyday life. I bring that up because Pinky, I just had this really strong vibe that Rainbow's like, throw me the rope, and Pinky's like, well, I don't know why that's going to help, but okay, here you go. Just struck me there. Ahem. This then leads to our flashback. And Gilda's all nervous and shy at flight camp and doesn't really know how to hold herself and is obviously just very out of sorts. And oh my god, first of all, been there. Second of all, yep, that lines up. Ignoring the fact that she's a new person in a new place, which is already a thing that would cause that. There's the fact that she's somewhere other than Griffinstone, which by that point in history was already a terrible place to live. And all of a sudden she's in frickin' Cloudsdale, I couldn't think of it for a second. Right? Yeah, it's just, of course she's going to react like that. Of course, this also helps to explain why she has that front. Not only because she had to toughen up there, but let's be honest, because she has to toughen up because of where she lives, in Griffinstone. But we do see that she's adorable underneath that, because of course she is. By the way, well, there's a couple of continuity counters today. I'm going to add a bonus continuity counter for the song. You remember that? If you don't remember, way back, there was this bit, way back in Season 1, in the other Gilda episode, where Rainbow Dash says something along the lines of, hey, you remember the song to chant we used to do? Let's do the chant. And Gilda's response is, just for you, Dash. This episode now reclarifies that as a front. Because in this episode we see that back when they were kids, it was Gilda who was really into the song, and who wanted to go ahead and cheer with all her might and all that fun stuff. That's good. So anywho, naturally Rainbow Dash, young Rainbow Dash, would immediately lunge to the defense of someone else because she's Rainbow Dash. That's just kind of how she is. Ignoring the heroic thing, there's also the defense thing, but also the fact that she likes to, you know, take other people under her wing, which at this point I believe is now 3 total people she's done that to. Gilda, Fluttershy, and Scootaloo. I could be missing someone, but she's done it at least 3 times. So, I'm sorry for saying something that's going to sound sappy and cliched, but I really feel for Gilda there, because having your first actual real friend is a very unique experience. The first actual real friend I ever had in my life, I got when I was 18. Now, you might be thinking, oh, wow. And actually, I am still friends with that person to this very day. But the reason I bring that up is because I had a lot of friends before that. If you get my point. So we can see why this had such an impact on Gilda, why she cares so much, and why she is so willing to go help Rainbow. Why, when she sees the idol, she is willing to let go of the idol in favor of Rainbow, because Rainbow's more important to her. She's her only friend, after all. Think about that. I know friendship's kind of the theme of this show, but even if we ignore that for a second, friendship and the connections between people is a very important and very powerful thing. In real life, never mind in fiction. So yeah, we have the Indiana Jones moment. And she And of course, Darth's other thing. And then, they rescue Rainbow. Again, Rainbow was here to be a rescue thing. But of course, Rainbow had to be in actual danger. Because Gilda is the kind of person who isn't going to let her friend get hurt when the stakes are real, right? The stakes had to be real. Rainbow had to be actually in danger in order for Gilda to be able to go and rescue her, which she then does. It's good stuff. I'm with it. Then they drop a few jokes on the way in, the fourth wall breaking baking powder thing, which I don't even know what to make of that. And of course, the old charmer, King, whatever his name was, wink wink, and the episode closes out. If it's not obvious, I rather like this one. It's exceptionally well constructed, and very well thought out, very well planned out. This episode is a clear example of someone who sat down and really carefully mapped out how they want the episode to go. And I just noticed something, by the way. I wouldn't surprise me at all, Weads. It's interesting to note that Amy Keating Rogers also wrote Mystery on the Friendship Express, which I only bring up because that was the other major Griffin episode we've had. I don't think she wrote the first one. No, Griffin the Brush-Off was Cindy Morrow. Season 1, Episode 5. I don't think this is quite purple, but I do think this is a red episode. Which is funny, because so far Amy Keating Rogers is primarily green and red, is the dominant colors present here. But the connection, the connectivity, the GM style, the excellent dialogue, the fact that it was actually funny, the perfect utilization of the characters, the very careful planning out of the plot and construction thereof, and the very simple message that actual friendship is nice, but actual friendship plus a thing is even better. The baking, the food culture thing I already mentioned. I think that's what pushes it up to red for me, personally. I don't even know why I'm asking this. This is actually a pretty good one. Thankfully, this is not the end of the Griffins on this show. We will be seeing more of them in the future. Next week, we'll be covering an episode I've actually only seen twice. But it's an episode that I remember exceptionally fondly. A Slice of Life. Looking forward to that. Immediately after that, we will be covering Princess Spike.